Number 1, scooped mids sound awesome. Oh boy. Okay, so this is like a big thing in metal that I see, but definitely in punk too. Where guitar players just like, they scoop the mids out super hard and then crank the lows and the highs, and it sounds like steaming butthole. I'm not sure how anyone thinks this sounds good. I guess at low volumes when you're playing by yourself, like in your bedroom or whatever, it can sound kind of cool, but as soon as you put it against other guitars, other instruments, you put it in a mix, it just sounds like hot shit. Now you've got an instrument that's taking up a bunch of low end and a bunch of high end frequencies that aren't in its natural frequency range that you're just boosting, and then now it's filling up this weird spectrum that is fighting other instruments that naturally sit in those ranges. So it sounds bad, and it's taking up space from everything else. Don't scoop your mids. The guitar is a low mid instrument. You should be working with that. Stop trying to make it something that it isn't. Mid-range, it's good. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Try it. You'll thank me later. Number 2, I need all the distortion. Addendum, distortion makes things heavy. I love distortion. Don't get me wrong. I honestly think distortion is super, super cool. And when you're a bad guitar player, like some people, distortion can be a great way to hide some of your mistakes. It can make it seem like you're a bit better player than you actually are, and frankly, it just sounds really cool. The thing about distortion, though, is distortion isn't what makes things heavy. Distortion takes the signal and it clips it. It compresses it and it clips it, so it becomes kind of this just weird, non-dynamic sausage, an audio sausage. And you've destroyed all of what is wonderful about the guitar, and that is that you use the guitar for clarity and attack. Heaviness comes from low frequencies playing in tandem with the guitar. So when you have the bass and the guitar together playing the same riff, and then you've got all that low end that's carrying that riff, that's how you get heavy. But frankly, like, less distortion in a mix is actually probably better, because then you don't have this fizzy, flat, undynamic guitar sound, which then makes the guitar interesting. It makes it fun for the ears. You get kind of like some of this magical ear noise that makes you feel good inside. Distortion is great for some stuff, but also frequently it's also not great, because you're not getting all the wonderful sounds from distortion. You're getting the wonderful sounds from dynamics. Number 3, louder is better. I, like every guitar player in the world, love to just crank the guitar up as loud as it can go. Oh boy. Loud guitars are something special, and especially tube amps, because when you turn up a tube amp and you drive the preamp harder, it breaks up, which gives you that nice, naturally occurring distortion, which is just so wonderful. But the thing about cranking your volume up to the umpteenth degree is that you're not allowing space for anybody else. So especially if you're in a practice space with a band, what you need to remember is that you're part of a team, right? It's not just, here's the guitar player plus like the other instrumentalists that are here as well. The guitar is part of the experience. So what you need to do is balance your guitar to everything else. You don't need to keep turning your guitar up louder and louder and louder so it's louder than everything else, because it's not supposed to always be louder than everything else. It's supposed to fit in the mix with everyone, right? The drums, the bass, the guitars, the vocals. Don't be that guitar player that goes, sound checks, and then turns up his amp immediately after sound check, because that's so annoying. It's the worst. It sounds bad. You've ruined the mix that we've got going, and now you're blasting somebody else in the band who probably doesn't want to hear more of your guitar because they just don't need it, right? So louder is not better. Working with your team to get the best possible dynamic for your band is what's better. Now, for some bands, turning the guitars up all the way is going to be what you want to do. Some doom metal bands, it's brutal, but I like, that's the sound, right? That's the sound. Not for my band, though. Both guitar players need the same amp. I guess if you're in a band that has multiple guitar players, there's like this kind of rookie mindset that both guitar players need 6505s, which is not the case, really, because 6505s are great, I guess, for metal or whatever. But the thing is, when you both have the exact same amp and they both have the exact same tone, it just becomes like a muddy wash of the same sound. And if you guys are playing slightly out of time with each other, you're just gonna mix up this same frequency range, and it's gonna kind of sound like This is the same thing as like you need to work with your team. So if you use different tones than each other, that's going to give the ear something interesting to pick up on either side, which is kind of a wonderful thing because this gives you dynamics, but it also gives you just like something fun to hear, and it can make your mixes sound larger if you're mixing songs. It can just give the audience something else to latch onto. Having different tones benefits the whole team because it's gonna just make everything sound more dynamic, more interesting, and just like cooler in general. I don't know, that's just my opinion. I only have one guitar player in my band, so like it's just pretty much all on me, and I'm terrible, so whatever. Digital amps sound like I need a tube amp. Okay, tube amps are awesome. Don't get me wrong. I love them. I think they're great. But digital amps do not sound like Some digital amps sound like I'm looking at you, the Line 6 Spider. I'm looking at you. As with everything in life, you get what you pay for. If you buy a cheap digital amp, it's probably gonna sound like a cheap digital amp. Tube amps are expensive, and there's a reason they're expensive, is because they require more parts and more care to build, so frequently they sound better. That said, there are lots of really good digital amps that you can get. Tons of people nowadays are touring with these Line 6 Helixes, there's tons of people using the Axe Effects, using the Kempers, and these things sound awesome, and I guarantee you, most people can't tell the difference. Non-guitar players 100% don't care to tell the difference, and guitar players probably can't really tell the difference. They can say they can tell the difference, but let's be real, probably they can't. And frequently, digital amps are being used in a lot of recordings that you listen to and that you love, whether it's the main tone or it's just mixed in with other tones. This is something that's happening. Guys, just accept it. This is the new way. Digital is a big part of guitar tone, and there's nothing wrong with that. Digital tones can be cool. If that's what you want, if it's the tone you like, it's what you can afford, there's nothing wrong with owning a digital amp. I use them on like all my recordings anyway because I live in an apartment. I can't be turning up tube amps to record them in here. I would piss off the neighbors so much. And they probably already are pissed off at me. Ooh. Bigger is better. Okay, big amps are rad, don't get me wrong, and it is super cool to see a band on stage with like a Marshall full stack. They've got like, 4 cabinets, they got this whole wall of amps. It looks so cool, but I hate to be the one to break this to you frequently that those are dummy cabs, and the cabs you're seeing don't have speakers in them, and so are very light. The thing that you're not thinking about big amps is that they're friggin' heavy, man. Big amps are crazy heavy, and when you're lugging gear around in the back of a van and upstairs, because when you're a smaller band playing venues, frequently they are all upstairs. It's crazy. They are literally, all of them are up a set of stairs. I don't know how this happens, but there's so many stairs, and big amps are a pain. They take up tons of space. They are heavy as balls. At most levels, you don't need a big amp because you're probably not playing stadiums. Even if you're playing big rock clubs, there are sound systems and your amp is probably going to be mic'd up, which means you can get away with a small amp. I frequently use a Fender combo amp that is a 110, or I have an orange Micro Terror running through a small extension cabinet. These things are going to get mic'd. Or, with my case with the combo, is I can run it as a head into a cabinet if there is one, if I want to. And it's small, it's light, it takes up no space, it's easy to get places. The thing is, if you're playing a lot of shows around and out of town, having a big amp might look cool, but it is super not economical for you to use. Like, shrink down your amps, because it's just going to save you so much headache in the long run, really. Unless that's your only workout. But your back is gonna hate you because it is so hard to pick up a speaker cabinet with good form. Really, it's so hard to do. My tone is the most important part of the band. It isn't. It isn't. And if you've never heard this before, well, too bad. Your tone is not the most important part of your band. You're part of a team. Your tone should work with your team. And even from song to song, your tone can change. You should be serving the song, not your own ego, okay? I get it. You have a guitar tone that you really like, and that's awesome, but it just might not work for everything, okay? And you shouldn't be upset or ashamed to have to change that tone, because you should be trying to get a tone that works for your entire group and for every single song. Just get your head out of your ass. It's not all about you. Unless you're like a super guitar-driven band, in which case then I get that, like, if the guitar is the lead melody instrument, maybe tone's a little more important. But still, you can't have your guitar tone at the cost of everything else in the band. There are other people in the world out there with instruments too. Bass players deserve at least a little bit of love, okay? Bass is like it's not hard, but it's a cool instrument. I don't want to just rag on bass players. I don't want to be that guy. YouTube already has that guy, so I don't need to be that guy too. A better amp will make me sound better. No. No, it won't. All the most expensive gear in the world will not make a guitar player sound good. Practice your instrument, okay? Stop buying gear. Stop spending all your time and money trying to find out what the best piece of gear is. Practice your instrument. A great player can make a amp sound great. I have seen dudes show up with literal DIY 10-inch speaker combo amps that they built in their basement that are super not great, but the player is amazing, and that's all that matters, because at the end of the day, the amplifier is just amplifying your guitar, which is you playing it, right? So it's all in the fingers. Practice your instrument. Stop dicking around on the internet researching guitar amps, and pick up your damn guitar and do some practice. That's really what the most important thing here is. Not having a better amp. Seriously, oh god. Active pickups versus passive pickups. Which is better? It doesn't matter which is better. They're different. They're different pickups. They both do different things. It all depends on your genre of music, the sound that you're trying to go for. If you're looking for a more high gain, higher output sound, then get active pickups. If you want a lower output, more mid-rangey sound, then get passive pickups. They do different things. They both are entirely different in every way. Don't compare the two, because there is no comparison to be made other than the fact that they are pickups that you can put in guitars. You need to decide for yourself what you're going for, and then pick which one is right for you. And stop complaining when other people don't use the one that you use and try to convince them yours is better over theirs. It's all different. All of it is different. Stop. Just pick some pickups and roll with it, man. Number 10, you need a tube screamer. Okay, you don't need a tube screamer. They're awesome. You know, any kind of clean boost that drives your tube amp harder is gonna be awesome. And also you can use them to scoop out some of the low frequencies that are a little less controlled, specifically in passive guitar pickups. But you don't need a tube screamer. You don't need anything. You literally need a guitar, a patch cable, and an amp, and that's pretty much it. So if anybody tries to tell you that you need something, they're probably trying to sell you something, or they're trying to convince you about that a purchase they made was the right decision. Don't let people tell you what you need to have to play guitar. Find things that work for you, that you're stoked about, and use them. And don't buy things you don't need. Now, you could get a tube screamer. They're very useful. I have found that having a clean boost, not a tube screamer, but a clean boost, is definitely very helpful. But recently, I've stopped using my clean boost, and I've been using less distortion. But is that to say that's the right thing for you? I don't know. Maybe. But at the end of the day, you don't need anything. You just need to play guitar and find a tone that you are happy with.